Hello again, and welcome back to our next episode, following on from last time where we were talking about when our system's good. Today, we'd like to discuss what happens when someone opts out of a system. Is betrayal a reasonable or rational reaction or consequence of that? Or can we be and should we be actually free to chart our own path? So, Cosmo, would you like to start?
Sure. Well, to this, the first thing I'm thinking about is that people do have different value systems. People value different things. Some people value tradition. Some people value freedom. Some people value taking risks and making changes and having progress. So I think for me, I'm a person who's more leaning toward valuing freedom and changes. I'm a big believer that if there are something that is affecting us is not actually affecting us in a good way, then can we challenge the status quo and make a better system? At the same time, I think there are a lot of good systems that once you kind of take it apart, it's very hard to build things like a constitution, a legal system, infrastructure, stuff like that. So how do we innovate and make progress without breaking good systems that we already have that we collectively build over time? I think is the question for me. What do you think?
I think people should have the freedom to opt out of a system. And like you said, breaking down of good systems is a consequence, but sometimes when people do opt out, they end up developing better systems, and it comes from that freedom as well. So I think if something is very destructive, in a sense, when it's done on a smaller scale by a smaller group or an individual, the majority can sort of see and even learn and improve on that. But also, it is right to feel betrayed when somebody does that, because it's human nature to feel that, right? And we have to understand that you can't tell people to feel a certain way. So betrayal, it's part of human nature. But then the things that stem out of that betrayal are not necessarily natural. It can be a very momentary thing where you feel hurt and betrayed, but then you need to think about it and ask yourself, why do I feel betrayed? Did I want to do this thing? Or am I hurting by the system too? So I think betrayal could be like a trigger that could help us look deeper into us, and we don't necessarily have to do like things that hurt the person that is opting out of the system. That is where the problem lies, I believe. Well, what do you think, Penny?
Well, as is my want, I always feel that any system should be the individual's own, and if you take that as a given, then perforce they are going to opt out of some system or the other, somewhere or the other. And I believe that is not just our God-given right, it is essential. It's essential for the progress of humanity that we follow our truth.
Evolution,
and our truth cannot combine every single system on the planet. So there's going to be opting out willy-nilly.
Yeah, right.
But I actually don't think betrayal need necessarily be a reasonable consequence. I agree that it is currently the case because of this feeling on this planet that everyone should march to the same drummer. I mean, conformity is so drilled into us. So being that the case, I think if we could come to grips with betrayal, it would be a vast step forward for eliminating really all, like you said, the horrible consequences of people who feel betrayed and then act on it. Because why should we be betrayed? Why should we feel betrayed? we feel it because we think that person ought to be following a system that we already buy
Exactly.
into. And that really is the crux of the matter, which is why I think this discussion and what you said earlier in our first discussion was so actually potent, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I do think the word betrayal has this, stigma, and it's supposed to be a very negative thing that, it has to be completely erased, and that's not necessarily how it should be, because there are a ton of supposedly negative things that really push us to grow, that help us to learn and learn more about ourselves, how we can be tolerant. Something that could make us feel betrayed, but it could be an opportunity to learn to be more tolerant. I think, especially when we're living in this world where we are with different people all the time from different cultures, and maybe someone does something which to us is just baffling, like, are you doing this? And maybe on a very smaller scale, we might internally feel betrayed, but then that's a very good way to learn to deal with that betrayal, and that it could be a stepping stone to dealing with sort of bigger cultural betrayals that, as we name these.
Yeah, I think betrayal is a very interesting concept because it implies that if you don't conform, if you're opting out, that means it's a bad thing that you do, that you're doing something bad. And like opting out is not usually an option. That's the implication.
Yeah.
And that's actually, to your point, is the implication is also that there are defaults. There are things that are the big boxes that we always fill in, and if you're outside of the boxes, you're not covered. So it's actually the opposite of your ideal, which is like everybody has their own system. It's like there's very rigid system going on. That's what is implied. I recently read an article, and I thought it was very interesting. Is that it said that in some Asian Native American culture, if I remember correctly, they don't have two genders. We have. They have 6 genders, something like that. They have female, male. A male's like a female is like a male, and then like a dragons. Different categorizations. And then after the missionaries and the Europeans arrived in North America, they basically made them accept the binary system of gender. And
a good example of a rigid system.
Exactly. And they even like erased some of the documentations of the cultures to show that these native people they didn't have like, and it's just recently unearthed like these facts are unearthed that they had more genders. So I think in systems it's like very hard to avoid having big boxes, big categories that a lot of people fall into. But these boxes, can they be more refined so that we have some flexibilities in the system? Or can opt-out be not just the opt-out, but another option maybe?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think any system will have a kind of structure. So in the case of betrayals and even the concept of opting out, for me that should be an alien thing. For me it should just be an open-ended thing. So if you look at it that way, then it's not so much the system as the way it's applied and the way it's enforced, shall we say. And that's the problem with a lot of systems, I feel, on the planet right now, because they are enforced. It's not so it's that power versus force thing. Like force is the external stimulus, whereas powerful system comes from within. And from something from within it's not an opting out or an opting in, it just is.
It's very interesting.
I find this whole thing about betrayal very interesting indeed. However, we must also consider betrayal as in the actual term betrayal, where people betray to cause harm. And I feel that's a thing that shouldn't happen. and I think with us it goes without saying, wherever there's destruction or some malice, it shouldn't happen. But because our concepts of betrayal are so wound up about, things that should be someone's independence and freedom, or issues of someone's independence, you count that as betrayal.
Yeah.
You're slapping the same label
Exactly.
on a really toxic thing.
Yeah.
You see, that's the
Yeah.
problem.
That's a very good point. And also, what you said about power from within, people need to understand why something's happening, and that what inspires them to follow a system rather than, telling people what the consequences are all the time, just drilling fear into them. You follow this, otherwise, that will happen. Of course, many people will follow a system, but there will be many who try to break free because it could be a great system, but you don't know why you're following it, and in some ways it could be suppressing your creativity.
Yeah.
So I think we don't pay enough attention to, telling people, educating them about why a system is doing what it's doing.
Yeah, so that they make a more informed.
Exactly. In fact, I think
choice.
people who enforce these systems have forgotten why a system is there.
Good point.
Yeah, it's become the because.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
But I think you pointed out the other side of this thing is that there are incidents or cases where people break a system for the sake of breaking it or for their own personal gain.
Yes.
Because if they destroy something, they can gain power or influence or something like that.
Yeah.
So in those cases, we do need to be aware that opting out might not be a good thing. I think that's usually the reason why a lot of the more conservative people are weary or afraid of changes. They're afraid that good things would come down with
That's true.
as well,
Exactly.
would break down as well.
But so how can we tell, who is doing it in order to improve a system and who's doing it for their personal
Good question.
gain? How do we build a system that helps us figure out?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that we can actually build a system to safeguard the system, but for me it's very simple personally, because if it's true for them, then it's a good opt-out. If it's a machination or a maneuver and it's insincere, because what is true for them could also be a maneuver, and that's fine. Knock yourself out. But I think the intent behind it is what would bring the changes. If, like you said, if someone was overtly seeking power, then that's time for everyone to be wary. And I mean, this doesn't just happen in politics or on a big scale, right? It happens in our lives. It happens within friendships and stuff where people make political moves. So that, for me personally, that's not a good opt-out, and that is a true betrayal. Where for questions of money or power or property or whatever.
And I think once you do figure that out, that someone is doing this for the wrong reasons, I think you have to be strong enough to let the other person know, because that's how they might learn too. You know, you can't just cover things up or just in order to not face, confrontation or stuff like that. Similarly, maybe on a bigger scale, when somebody does something bad, instead of always punishing that person, I guess that does, discourage people. But also, you have to, make them understand that that thing has consequences on other people.
Right.
Absolutely. And let me jump right in there, because it that touches exactly on something that's very dear to my heart, because I believe when people are breaking systems like that, so things like gang rape, for example, I mean, that's infringing a system for personal gain to the nth degree at someone else's expense and to someone's detriment. So back to your point, I really believe those people should be outed from the minute they voice even such a thing. And it also applies to people who are doing acts of terror, or where family members know that's the time to catch it and nip it in the bud.
Nip it in the bud, exactly.
Very good point. Were you going to say something when I jumped in?
No, yeah, I think making it known that somebody's just breaking a system for their own gain, it's very important. But I do agree that it's really hard to tell. I think only critical thinking and rationalization, rational discussions can like help us distinguish what is like doing breaking something for the sake of improvement or for the sake of redistributing kind of wealth or something like that.
Point, Cosmo.
Yeah,
and I think that's why we need to encourage curiosity in little kids, so they grow up to question things and not just take everything at face value.
Yes, yes. So that is true from the external, from us to the outside, but it's equally true from us to the inside, where we need to know, is that triggering something just for the general good, or is it just triggering something because we don't like it? It's an important distinction.
Exactly. You have to be brave to confront your fears, your issues too.
Yes, and be able to give people freedom where it's warranted, and to shut it down when it is harmful. And I really, really feel very strongly, because this distinction is being missed, a lot of things get tarred with the same brush.
Yes, exactly.
And that is dangerous, because things that should get attended to get left, and things that should get left alone get spotlighted,
exaggerated, and
so we are all chasing a tail that doesn't need to be chased, and not cracking down on things that are really serious.
Yeah, people don't know how to prioritize.
I think it's interesting because we were actually drawing a graph about different types of systems at different levels, personal up to government, right? I think we can draw the line where if it's a system that affects the individual, family, social, work, or something like that, we should have more tolerance for different choices, because it's just a lifestyle choice. It's not really infringing on anybody's rights and things like that. But if it's like a breaking point from social or like communal, religion or government, maybe we'll have to have more discussions, take more cautions, because it has effect on a lot of more people.
Impact.
And if you break down a system on those levels, might be hard to rebuild. So maybe more tolerance on a local level, but on a global level.
Yes, I would agree with that. Basically, tolerance in most things. But I would say, because I actually think there are a lot of systems in government, society, culture, on the global level that need looking at, I would then say the things not to infringe would be good practice. What is good practice? What is common sense? What is gentility?
Exactly.
Things that make life wonderful. So security is a good thing not to infringe.
Yeah,
definitely.
So if you look at it that way, then how it's infringed, because some things have to be questioned, right?
Yeah.
So how betrayal happens is also critical to our response to it. I think.
Yeah, that's true. Understand the core of it.
And the method of delivery, because you come at me with a spike. Hey,
exactly.
That's not a good way, right? Not a good way to address things.
Definitely not. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think actually my dream is maybe one more step is that in the future, hopefully, we don't have opt-outs at all. We just have choices, and if you create a new choice, a new option for yourself, that's great.
Yeah.
Maybe we haven't heard of it before, but if that's what you want, that's your lifestyle, I really respect it.
Yes, broaden our experience.
Yes.
Your dream is my dream.
Yes. That would be great.
It's our dream.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I think we need more tolerance for that, and we need to actively find ways to help people be more tolerant, because of course we know tolerance is what what's needed, but how do we apply it to our lives? We can't just say we need this. We need to know how to
Exactly.
have it. And sometimes it in our part, we want to do something, but we don't want to hurt someone's feelings, even though it doesn't hurt their feelings, just like what they're used to. I think we need to be brave and do these things.
Yes.
Of course, make sure not hurt people physically, or don't be a jerk, of
Right.
course.
Right.
Don't intend to hurt.
Don't
I think.
intend to
It
hurt,
might
exactly.
hurt, but that's not your intention. Your
Yeah.
intention is just to live your life the best way you
Exactly.
can.
In fact,
right?
you can go one step further and actually help them deal with this, this hurt or betrayal that they're feeling by talking to them.
Yes.
Why
Yeah.
do you feel hurt? Why do you feel betrayed?
Yeah.
And I think if we have that, way to deal with things, I think then it would be
Right. It's interesting. It's a very interesting topic. Maybe we can add another topic to it. It's the topic of entitlement. I once heard a talk about
yes.
like this couple. They go to different corporate companies to help them be more tolerant with different kind of diverse workforce. And one of the things is for the people who are actually privileged to recognize what kind of privileges they have, so that they could recognize what privileges other people don't have, and then have that empathy. So there are ways that we can do that by basically like being conscious about, if you're in the default boxes, you are entitled. You don't have to struggle as much. The society is already catered to your needs, and you know how to interact with society by default. But with people who are a little bit different, and we're all quirky in some way, right?
Yeah.
With people who are different, they don't have that entitlement. They have to go through life, struggle, and figure out who they are, figure out how they can interact with their own society. It's a different person. So I think it's a very worthwhile topic to talk about.
Yeah, I do agree.
Yes.
And from my point of view, the quirky ones are the privileged ones. But like you said, that's our life day.
Differently.
Oh, totally.
That is very true.
Yeah.
They are, and maybe they don't understand the privilege that they have.
Yes.
And
Yes.
what
reframe that for them.
and what you said about understanding the privilege that you have. Sometimes when you take something away, not like
Yes.
you take this away from you, you're never having it. Like Ramadan, I was telling you guys, when I was doing Ramadan and stopped for a while, stopped eating for a bit, and then you really understand how food is so important and how many people do not have it the way we do. So I think that is really important to understand things, because we tend to take things for granted. It's human nature to get used to things.
Yes, and get complacent.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're running out of time, so let's quickly consolidate.
Okay.
For each of us, what would we say our top principle on the topic of betrayal as an opt-out of the system? So betrayal as we mean it, where someone is just unconforming, shall we say?
All right.
Well, if I summarize, then I think the betrayal, again, it means that there are kind of defaults in society, and there are big boxes most people fall into, and then if you're feeling betrayed that people don't fall into those boxes, it feels like you're wrong. You shouldn't be the opt-out option at all. So can we change that to think that this is not an opt-out, but it's another option and another way of life? And can we kind of loosen up our perception of different systems? Like it doesn't have to be binary or necessarily like rigid boxes. It could be a continuum. It could be like a rainbow, and people do fall into different parts, and that's part of life. If we can accept that, we'll become more tolerant.
Exactly. I do agree. And I think, I do think we need to accept that betrayal is a part of life, and then we need to provide people the right tools to deal with that, so they don't go out and do crazy things. I guess they need the emotional support or the right tools from the person, maybe learning to communicate better. I think that could help a lot. And I think teaching people to have a tolerance, so tolerance and communication, both of these things will help a lot. And I think, oh, this reminds me, real quick, I think I was told that in Singapore, the government put people of different nationalities together in one building, and then their kids grew up in that environment, and they just see this as a norm. So I think on a bigger scale, governments can implement this too, where you don't have to even like tell people, hey, do this. You can sort of put them in this environment where they just learn to be more tolerant, So I think there are many big steps we can take to develop tolerance. Cool.
Totally. So my top principle for betrayal or lack thereof would be, I guess, to know what's true for yourself.
Yes.
And cherish that, so then you are able to allow other people the ability to find what's true for them, and allow them to cherish that, because I think that's at the root of holding systems rigid, where someone has to be a certain way just because you are.
Yes, so it keeps you in your position.
And I think if we develop a love of individuality, and that's what systems deplete, right? Then it wouldn't even, like you were saying, it is not an opt-out, it's just a fluid system where you are you and I am me, and where we collide is great, and where we don't collide, off we go.
Exactly.
That's a nice conclusion.
So, so do we have action steps, or have we kind of formulated that into it as well?
Yes.
I think we have,
all right. So that's great. Thank you for watching, and we shall be back.
Hi, my name is Cosmo, and I'm a user experience designer. I like to use design thinking to promote social good, and I think conversations like this is a great way to start rethinking our world. That's why I'm doing this.
Hello, my name is Ghazala. I'm a big believer in providing people with the right tools to expand their perspective. I'm doing this to bring awareness to us collectively.
Hi, my name is Penny, and I really think the conversations that we have with each other in this world could do with a major upgrade. So that's the reason I'm doing this.